yet. Don't start the timer yet.
Yeah, we don't have to. Okay, we'd like to welcome everybody out to City Council. We'll excuse Mayor Hakes today, and I'll act in his role as best I can. Tough shoes to fill. But we'll begin with invocation by Councilman Carlson, and then following that, a Pledge of Allegiance that will be led by Councilman Egbert.
Our Father in heaven, as we come before thee this time, we express gratitude and appreciation for the many blessings that we so enjoy, especially for the privilege to live in this lovely town, and the people that we associate with, and the people that live here. We pray as those things that we do this evening, we might be guided with thee to do what is right. We also pray for the situations and challenges that exist in the world, the many people who are suffering difficult circumstances, challenges, heartache, etc. Wilt thou bring them comfort and peace, especially that our leaders might be more sensitive to those things of which we can do to bring harmony and unity to helping mankind. We pray for these things and express gratitude for all we enjoy. In the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen.
Please stand and join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Is there anybody here that wants to speak with regard to the public forum? I don't know if there's anybody signed up or if there's anybody that would like to speak on the public forum. Seeing no indication to that effect, we will move forward. So the first matter up is the consent agenda that's been presented. It has 2 items on it: the City Council meeting minutes approval from our last meeting, and then also the resolution of a preliminary plat for the Whitingfield subdivision. Any questions or discussion?
I'm going to be that person today. Sorry. I know there's one outlying question that Jeremiah had, one of the applicants, that we just had an exchange about. Jeremiah, do you mind speaking to this regarding the sewer drain? It's just something that we need to be aware of, and I know you'll have some additional questions with Stephen to talk about.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So Steve and I have been playing a little bit of phone tag the last month or so, and so, oh, I'm sorry, yes, yeah, Jeremiah Mon here in Mapleton. So I'm the one who's doing this lot with, well, the family's back here, actually. And so pretty fun to be able to do this. It's a personal project. We've been able to work with the Whiting family to be able to purchase this parcel and build this design and project. And so the families behind me are actually all going to be living here. So we're really excited about that. One of the things, as we've been working with staff, they've been awesome. Just been great working with them. One of the things that had recently come up, because we know as on the consent agenda, it's the way it's written, it's like, you know, plus the comments made by staff. And so we thought it'd probably be appropriate to ask this question. One of the situations we found out, as you guys know, we had that super big downpour about a month and a half ago. And we were fortunate to find out from that downpour that apparently the street has the storm drain system is connected to the irrigation system, which apparently is pretty widespread here in the city. In this particular case, it would actually be flooding the Rotinskys' basement. And so we were just kind of concerned about how to address that, because we are not adjacent to that storm drain where that street comes in. So basically all the water, it was multiple blocks worth of runoff that was unrelated to this particular parcel that were being channeled to this one particular drain and then put right into the irrigation system, which dumped right out onto the field. And there's other irrigation lines that could go to, if that's really what wanted to be done. But we were just a little concerned that we were being asked to incur a cost specific to that. And I don't really know if that is what was being asked, or if it's just being noted.
So it's just unresolved, an unresolved question from your perspective.
Yeah, so I mean, certainly, I mean, if we're being asked to cover that cost, our request would be that we not be required to cover that cost, because again, it's not adjacent to our parcel. It's kind of more of a, sure, yeah. So if you go, yeah, so it would be,
You got a pointer? we don't.
Should be,
So it's,
there's not one there.
Which
is there?
lot number?
so it's actually, if you go back to the map, and then so if you go to, so if you, right there, exactly where you're pointing at, Councilman Carlson. So so that's 600 north, and if you move, keep going to where it intersects to the east, move to the east,
Yeah,
Right.
that way.
and then stops right there. So on the east side of that road, correct, on that north corner, right there is where there's a storm drain. Mhm. And so that's where it, I'm sorry? Correct, and so the challenge that we have is, so Mapleton Irrigation, and speaking with them, you know, the whole ditch system is going to be abandoned.
Here comes the man with the answers
Oh.
now, so
Did we miss?
we'll wave him in here.
So anyway, so I'll just kind of share. So it's going to be, you know, Mapleton is planning to shut down, or Mapleton Irrigation is planning to shut down all those ditches. And so, you know, eventually that storm drain is not going to be part of, I mean, it's all going to be shut off. And so that's why we're kind of, I think we're in a bit of a,
So you need some clarity on that.
yeah.
So so the irrigation company is telling you that you're gonna have to incur the costs of rerouting the ditch.
So we are the last people on 2 ditches. And so we actually are just going to be able to abandon the use of the ditch.
Are you the developer, or are you just a lot purchaser?
So we are the lot owner and developer and future resident.
So you're developing this whole thing?
Point
Right.
for Steve, because
Yeah.
I need, that raises a number of questions that we need your expertise on, so.
Hi, Steve. I'm Jeremiah.
We're talking storm drainage on this Whiting Field subdivision. And so as I understand it, you're saying that at basically the intersection at the north, there's a
Yep.
current storm drain there that drains down and then dumps into an existing Mapleton irrigation ditch that also runs along that 400, or 600 North Street, right?
Yeah, and it actually stops at our parcel, is where we're
The
literally.
ditch stops there?
Yes, and it's it's piped underneath that yellow line there and tees right in front of either us or the Snows, because it's us and the Snows that are the last ones before it gets to the Arrive subdivision. And then my understanding is it's blocked off, and Steve can add some insight to that. My understanding is it's completely blocked off at that point.
So, and you're saying that from one of the recent storms, all of the water coming down through there basically
Yes.
flooded that?
Yeah, so it was an interesting situation. So that road in front of, I just totally blanked. Oh, it's terrible. They're my home teachers and they're EMS folks here. Gosh, I'm really bad with names. But anyway, they live right there and they look over the field. But anyway, in front of their house was about 15 feet of water that all got, was in there. And so there's definitely a water situation there
Okay.
that seems to, in my mind, just go beyond the scope of a developer trying to develop this. So the Thorns live right next to us. Yeah, the Thorns live right next to us. No, they are actually a couple feet higher, so it is actually the Whiting field that's within that orange box that was having where the water was going into. So we had there's actually a couple different stormwater situations that we found there as a result of the.
So, Steve, any insight with respect to the stormwater that's coming apparently
Higgins.
from that 6 South storm drain currently?
Yeah, so I can point everything out here probably, maybe.
We were looking for a pointer a second
not.
ago.
Is it working now? It's just bouncing off John's head. There it is, all right. So so the storm drain inlet is right there.
Yeah.
Okay? And it runs under the street, and then it goes into an open ditch, and then it's piped for a little ways, and then it just outlets right there in the corner of the field. And that's the end of it. So I don't know how long that's been there. I mean, that ditch has been there since the beginning of time. And I don't know how long it's been catching stormwater, but it's been as long as anybody can remember. So basically, something needs to be done with that. We kind of find ourselves in a situation where no development, no problem. right? If we weren't developing this piece, then the stormwater would just do what it had done historically, and we hadn't heard anything about it until right now. So I think it was Laura Whiting's piece, potentially, you know, and whether Laura liked the water coming off the rain or on whatever, or she just didn't know about it, who knows? But typically in a situation like this, the default position of the city is no development, no problem, right? If it wasn't for the development, we wouldn't do anything. So we'd push the burden of fixing that problem onto the developer. And then the developer comes to the council, we talk about it, and we decide what the best course of action is.
Fair enough.
But Stephen, what are the solutions? Whether
Yeah,
it's the
it's-
developer, what are the options?
Sure, it's actually not that complicated. It's a pretty simple fix. Again, in that, if I can get that, in that corner right there, the box, like we said, is kind of tied to that irrigation ditch. All we'd have to do is move the inlet just a little bit, and then we'd put some underground storage chambers in here somewhere, either under the road, which is not ideal, but we have that in places, or if we had some property right-of-way in there somewhere, we could put it in there. What we can't do is divert it and catch it on the property. That would be the easiest solution in a different situation, but because it's also an irrigation ditch, when they run irrigation water down there, it would end up catching in our storm drain detention, and that would just completely overflow. We'd never be able to fix it. So,
Explain that. I don't know, where's the irrigation ditch you're referring to?
yeah, same thing. So that ditch that the stormwater runs into is also used to irrigate those two properties.
Okay.
I believe they're garden tickets, and historically this piece.
Right.
So the two properties to the east?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if those two properties don't need that irrigation water in that ditch, and I don't know, that's a Mapleton Irrigation Company question, then that ditch could be abandoned completely, or in that situation, we could just turn it into a storm drain facility and then store the water on.
Jeremiah,
this
you've
piece.
mentioned something about abandonment of that irrigation. Do you have intel on those two properties to the
Yeah,
east, or you're just
so-
hoping that that's the case?
So obviously I'm friends with them since I live 3 doors to the west, or 5 doors to the west of this parcel right now. So the Thorns just kind of casually use it every so often for their trees, but they're not super
Okay.
into it. And then the Harveys actually don't use it at all. Harveys are the ones on the corner. They're just physically, they're getting up there, and so they don't really do much with it. And so I've actually been, just offhanded, because I mean, I know that in talking to Mapleton Irrigation, obviously they've got a lot of strong feelings about lots of things, and so this is what's interesting about where we're at is we are the end of 2 different lines. So there's the one, as Stephen mentioned, that comes from the east, that crosses underneath 4th East and then stops at our parcel. And then there's another one that comes from the school and again stops at our parcel. So the Thorns and the Harveys only are serviced by the one that comes from the east. So so the Snows have already agreed to sell me their single half share for their parcel, which is the one immediately adjacent to me. And then, so what our plan was basically to shut off the ditch. Actually, from talking about Mapleton Irrigation, we're going to shut it off we meaning them, they're going to plan on shutting it off at the corner of 12th and 4th to abandon the use of the north-south ditch. And then we were going to obviously just cut ours off at the end of the yellow border there. But possibly, as part of this conversation, maybe, Mapleton Irrigation would be like, oh, great, let's just shut the whole thing all the way back as far as we can. And I think the Thorns and the Harveys would be pretty amenable with that. I mean, I don't know if they have water shares. I assume they do, but they'd probably be willing to sell them.
Yeah, that was my question, was do we know if they own shares? Because we can't just,
I'm going to assume they do, just to be, yeah. So what I would probably work out with them, again, I have a really good relationship with them. What I'd probably work out with them is just kind of like what I did with the Snows and said, hey, if you guys aren't using them, can I buy them for you? I mean, I already have the shares that are required by the city, but I'm practical enough to know it's nice to be able to clean that stuff up. And so we can make those available to somebody else.
So I'm still trying to understand that one scenario then is if that occurs, ultimately those 2 residents say they don't need it and willing to abandon or sell or transfer their water rights, Mapleton Irrigation says, okay, fine, we no longer will be utilizing that ditch, then then you're saying the suggested approach at that point for the stormwater coming down and entering that storm drain on Fourth and Sixth would be what?
My preference would be to find somewhere on this developed piece that we could store the water with underground chambers. That'd be my preference, because we'd keep it out of the road. But the second option, which is, A1 and A2, they're not bad. The second option is that we would catch it right in the street on Fourth East and put it under the road in storage basins. And we can do either one.
So it just is under the road or under their development?
Yeah. Yep.
So that's a scenario wherein the ditch gets abandoned. What about the scenario where, for whatever reason, the residents there want to maintain their water rights, want to maintain that irrigation ditch? How does that then make it I guess the point there being is that in the scenario where we would try to retain the water under the road, that wouldn't work because we'd still need to keep that ditch live.
No, that would work. That'd be the only option that worked. Keeping it on the property
true,
wouldn't work.
right.
Yeah, so if, in that case, we'd have to put it under the road.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting one, because
So Stephen, scenario A or B, is there a cost difference, or are they similar?
Yeah, under the road would be a lot more expensive.
Right.
Yeah.
And what are we talking cost-wise?
Honestly, I don't know, because I haven't seen the hydraulic analysis yet on how much stormwater we're talking about. So until we know that, it's all volume-based. So the more water we have to store, the more expensive it is. And then if it's out in the road, we've got the road restoration and the patching, and there'll be curb gutter and sidewalk to repair, things like that.
If it was a basin, is that above ground? A basin?
No, it would be below ground. We'd use underground storage chambers, yeah, which is pretty much the standard we're using now everywhere. We just don't like to put them under the street.
How far below ground are they?
It depends.
Like
but
if they were in a development?
in a
what-
development, you're probably 3 feet to the top,
Oh, not
and
far.
then they go deep at that point. Again, we'd have to look at the
Sure.
geotechnical analysis, see where the groundwater is, and, yeah.
So is there any, under the proposed plan of this development, is there any is there any storm drain retention plan in place for the rest of that development relative to, like, what is that, 7th North as it goes to the west there?
Yeah, so the city code is you have to retain your water all on
Right.
site, right? And so they have proposed underground chambers of the type I'm talking about throughout the development, with inlet boxes and then chambers, but those go in the park strip, so they won't be under the road.
But is there a way that in any way that we could tie into those, and there's a cost associated with it that we'd have to figure out. If
Yeah.
it's less expensive for the city to tie into those, if that was a possibility, then to put it under that corner, under the road there, is it feasible logistically to do that?
I don't think so, because I think the elevation's working against us. I think we're going
Okay.
uphill from that corner into the development, so I don't think that'll work.
so are you talking about from Fourth to the
From
Fourth and
6th
Sixth?
to 7th,
So
is that uphill
the
or is that
elevation
downhill?
goes downhill toward the northwest.
So it might work, might be okay.
In fact, what's kind of interesting, I have the video, I'll have to send you the video, because what ended up happening actually is all the water, this is what's been kind of weird about it. It was the Higgins I was thinking of, that are on, their house is in the middle of the block to the east there. And in front of their house was about a huge amount of water on that superstorm that we had, and it stayed all on the east side of the road. The stuff that crossed the road was the stuff that went into the ditch, and that's what flooded the field. And so it was a good test case scenario, so we bring that kind of stuff to our attention, because you're right, I've been living here for 4 years, I've never seen that kind of water in that area. So one thing that is kind of helpful, you mentioned about the concern about the road. So one thing with this development is we are widening the road for our part of the road, which is the
Up north?
which is the northern 2/3 of that block that you see. There is still a good 10, 20 feet of unpaved road really in front of or adjacent to the Harveys. If I'm correct on that, am I right about that? So, there is potential where if somebody wanted to put a basin on that side, it could be done, but without necessarily digging up asphalt.
Meaning on the
So-
west side of Fourth East?
Correct, yeah. So the west side of Fourth East is completely unimproved. I shouldn't say completely unimproved, but it's significantly unimproved. And so we're running improvements down the yellow line there, but it can, cross the Harvey's property there, in front of the Harvey's and the Thorns, that whole corner there is unimproved. So there is, option, but again, Steve would have to look at that.
No,
and
that
see.
would work if the property dedication was there. Obviously, they're not participating in the development, so their property lines probably go to the middle of the road or somewhat
Right,
to
I
it,
think you're
right? So
right.
there would have to be some dedication of space behind any kind of future curb and gutter, or an agreement to just finish the road from 4th East all the way to 6th South. That would be a potential thing. Again, that would depend on the property owner being amenable to that. If that works, then we could put the storage chambers on that side of the street in a park strip, and that would work fine.
Yeah, they're running, there's always that silent, depending on who pays for it part, right? But
it
as
sounds
far
like
as
there's
working
a
to,
potential
yeah,
options, right?
that's.
Oh, yeah, there's plenty of solutions. Yeah, I've never been concerned about there being a solution.
It sounds like the topic then is, from the applicant, is the historical flow. You're hoping not to pay for that, to cover those costs.
Right, yeah, exactly. In this particular case, we're not just, we're the unfortunate end user of, we've already made our arrangements with Mapleton Irrigation. It's unfortunate that it turns out there's also stormwater that is being dumped onto our property that's not ours. Because as you mentioned, the city code, and you see this in the state, we're required to retain our water. I don't really want to retain everybody else's water at our expense. So that's what we'd like to avoid. Now, certainly at the same time, we're happy to work with the city to say, hey, well, here's a spot, and just because of the nature of the relationships I have with those people, I'd be happy to facilitate conversations there. Obviously, they're not going to want to pay for curb and gutter. I'm not going to want to pay for curb and gutter on the corner, but whatever options could come. One thing, talking about expanding the pie, is I have extra water beyond what I actually need, like Strawberry, and so so there's some options there as well that may be beneficiary to the city. The city would, with that, I don't know if that's who that conversation would be with, but.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's clear that, at least as it relates to the improvements along Fourth East that are not part of your development, that would be ideal for the city's benefit and ultimately at our cost to complete the improvements along there, just so you don't have the same problem we have in other parts of the city where you have, unimproved. It'd be nice to have the curb and gutter along there. And as part of that, if that ultimately gives rise to an opportunity where we can then, remediate a problem
yeah.
there, then it includes, the cooperation of the non-applicant,
neighbor.
whoever they are there on the corner, as well as the applicant in the city, then that to me sounds like if everything worked out ideally, that would be the ideal solution, correct?
Yep.
Because right now, when you drive that curb, people take it shallow and it throws dirt and all sorts
Right.
of stuff. There's gravel all the time out there, and so, certainly it'd be nice to see something there.
Did you say that there was another storm drain on the junior high property that dumped onto the property?
So there is Mapleton Irrigation's irrigation ditch runs on the west. It's piped from on the east side of the junior high there. So that currently feeds. That's what Rolf's been using to farm the land, and so it currently just goes there. So with us, Mapleton Irrigation really wants to see us completely abandon the use of the ditch because it's just so costly for them to try to deliver water to like one person, and so that's why they want to cap it as all the way at the corner.
What would that do to the storm drain at the junior high?
So it's well, you'd know better that.
That one's not storm drain.
Yeah, that's
That one's
only.
just irrigation.
Only irrigation.
Yeah, this is a pretty unique situation at the bottom corner there.
that's probably
where
been around
where
for
we've got a
100 years.
mix. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But, right, exactly, yeah. So.
Well, I think in the end, from my perspective, I think generally what I'm kind of hearing from the council is that we acknowledge there's an issue that needs to be resolved by way of some cooperation. And it sounds like the best scenario is a three-way cooperation with yourselves, the city, and the current resident there. But ultimately, you're probably going to be able to make that happen much better than anybody else. So I think, from my perspective, we can still move forward with the approval of this application, recognizing there's this outstanding issue that you want to have resolved, and we see a path whereby we can reach that resolution if ultimately you can come back to us with any kind of a report or understanding from what they may be willing to do, and working with our Public Works Department to see what the best scenario would be. But I think recognizing that the city acknowledges there's an issue there where there's a benefit from both the city and your perspective and hopefully the resident there that would result in a three-way deal that would work to everybody's benefit.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to summarize it, for sure.
I agree with that. With that being said, can I make a motion? With that being said, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and by Councilman Jones and a second by, who did the second?
Me.
Oh,
Councilman Garrett.
yes, so go ahead and vote.
I assume that it covers this.
Yes, that's the consent agenda, two items which are approving this subdivision as it's been presented.
With the irrigation problem.
With the acknowledgement of the outstanding.
But recognizing they're gonna be coming back with further discussion on trying to resolve that issue.
And all that's in the DRC comments. So
Right.
if you just approve it,
Right.
acknowledging the DRC comments, then we're good.
Carlson, yes.
Egbert, yes.
Garrett, yes.
Lundberg, yes.
Jones, yes.
Okay, thanks, everyone, and good luck, and we'll,
We'll see you
Hope you
later.
can-
We'll see you soon.
That's probably gonna be a shorter consent, but thanks for talking about it.
no, thanks for bringing it up, and it's, hopefully we can get that resolved.
Yeah, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Oh, hey.
Okay, that was the last item on the agenda, so let's go ahead with administrative reports.
Okay, we are ready to start the very last phase of our road construction projects. So we've got slurry seal.
Last phase.
Yeah,
We
we're,
don't do any more after this?
not this year, no way. I'm gonna take the rest of the year off. So we're doing slurry seal, that's the last thing. Slurry seal is usually the one we get the most,
Angst?
feedback about. So just kind of be prepared for that. They should be starting sometime in September. So that was the date they gave us. It'll last 2 or 3 weeks.
Stephen,
Yeah.
what has been or could be done differently to reroute, notify, and otherwise prepare the affected drivers and neighbors?
Citywide evacuation during construction season. We're getting
Everbridge?
good at evacuations. We should be able to
Everbridge?
do that. Yeah, I mean, we kind of learned a lot of lessons this year. We had a lot going on. Usually, we don't have to deal with UDOT doing stuff on the back of what we're doing, plus triathlons and other things that kind of came at us pretty quick. So the biggest thing I'd like to do, and we'll have this ready, is I want to build a road closure map that we just put on the website all the time. And anytime we have any construction with road closures and detours, we'll post it there, and people will be able to find it. Now that we've got Madison, it's going to be, I think, a lot easier for us to put stuff out on social media and things like that. So, yeah, we learned a lot about that kind of stuff this year.
Right, okay.
So that's the road project. Signal got turned on today at 8th South. You might have seen that as you came through. Finally, that one took longer than we hoped, but it's done, and it seems to be okay.
It's bittersweet
When I drove
for
through there.
homeowners.
Yeah.
And Chief, to the crossing stripes get put into?
Yep.
and-
Yep, they couldn't turn them
It's-
on until those
Yep.
were done. so.
It's all done and live, so.
When will you be doing the bike path?
Bike lanes, we're gonna do them in the next couple of weeks. We don't know yet. We've gotta get that lined out. We just finalized the decision on where all the bike lanes are gonna go. We're putting bike lanes in a lot of places. in the next couple of weeks. 16th North on the east side is going to get some. Harvest Parkway, Slant Road, Doubleday Street through the D.L. Horton project, a little bit on 8th West. Maple got them, so yeah, the UDOT Maple section got that, the bike lane there. So we're pretty excited about that. I think that's going to be good. As we were driving around just the other day, I was like, man, I don't know. Are people really going to use these? And as we drove down 1600 North, we passed six cyclists. So it was like, okay.
Can
all
something
right,
be
I think
done
we're
on
doing the right thing.
1600 South?
That would be a UDOT question.
I know, between 8th West and Maverick, I just fear for the poor person or child that gets caught up in that. I know that's not a city.
No,
road,
but that's
that is a
something.
concern.
Yeah, the next step for us, we threw the bike lanes together. We knew we wanted to put these where they are right now, but the next step for us is to do something a lot more comprehensive, and we're gonna put together kind of an active transportation master plan that ties in the trails,
Great.
the bike lanes. I'm actually about 2 days away from finishing the sidewalk master plan, so next council meeting, I'm gonna bring that, so you can look at what we're gonna do with sidewalks. That's been a long time coming, but it actually looks really good, so I'm really pleased with that.
Have you heard any updates on the 800 North light from UDOT?
Yes,
What you got?
they're still working on it.
Okay.
That is the extent of my update
Okay.
from them, yeah.
That's all I know too.
Getting bad over there. with
Yeah.
all the construction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so unless we want to build another school and make them hurry up, I think it's gonna take UDOT time.
This sidewalk master plan, we'll discuss that 8th North, which was discussed in that last meeting when Mike Cobia, the public forum, brought
yeah.
that up.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
ties to clear from Highway 89 down to 3rd West, but that one's gonna be an interesting subject.
Yeah, sidewalks are they're pretty contentious.
Yeah.
And it's, I've tried to be as objective as I can on scoring and putting together some pretty good criteria for where we should do the improvements, but I don't wanna
One of
give you
these-
too
After-
much of
after-
it.
Okay, the excitement.
After you present it to the city council, I'm just curious clearly there's some ongoing conversations on how we're gonna pay for it and priority and timeline. Because it's so contentious, would this be an appropriate thing to have, maybe an open house opportunity or online comment, kind of an opportunity for the public? Just so that it's being talked about long before it happens,
Yes, with a minor caveat.
okay?
And that would be, I would love feedback from residents that tell me, no, I don't want this sidewalk here. But it's really difficult to get into, well, why is it not in front of my house? And
So you want to hear from the no, not here,
That-
rather than the yes, I want it here?
yeah, and it's really hard to get that kind of feedback. You can do it. You just have to be really, really creative in how we do that. But once you go open house with sidewalk, it was
Right.
always whatever way my kid walks to school is the most important.
There's no doubt
Straight.
about that, no doubt about that. But
What
the
if-
most helpful to you is, no, I don't want it here, and this is why.
Yeah, for
Okay.
for residents, for me to put on a plan that I want to add the sidewalk, and for the residents to say, no way, I like not
Right,
having
okay.
sidewalk. I like the ditch that runs in front of my house, and
Which for me, over
That's
the
important.
years, has been about 50%.
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think
can be a lot.
everything I've ever heard about it is, we like the rural feel.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You put in a bunch of sidewalks and it just takes away from the rural feel.
Yep, so.
I've
we-
heard that about 1600 South, and yet it's also so busy, and especially as we've made our Allen even more populated, adding, it's a
Yeah, there's
challenge
a
for me to
comes a-
balance safety versus,
But that's
Rural-
the balancing.
Well, the
aspect
topic
of
you
it.
gotta look at, obviously, is cost, and cost include
Right.
whether city's gonna pay for this, or whether we're gonna do a special improvement district, which is
Right.
never fun, or you wait till development takes place and try to fill in the blanks from there, so.
Stephen, just for my understanding, I can't remember, what is the linear feet cost these days of just curb and gutter? Do you remember?
Oh, there's a lot of variables.
It's probably gone up every week for the last
Yeah,
10 weeks.
I think it's actually dropped just a little bit.
Just a little bit?
Things are getting a little bit better, but let everyone else talk and I'll look it up, because I've got it. I just need to log into my computer and I'll find you a bond, and that'll tell you.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
Approximately. No, you're fine, that's okay.
Engineers with numbers, right?
Yeah,
Gotta have it right here.
yeah, my
Chief?
problem is, if I've got them in a spreadsheet, then they're not staying in my head.
I was gonna talk about the light too, so we're still gonna put some guys down there for the next couple days, just to make sure they're pushing the buttons and crossing, but then we'll pull those guys off. That's actually been pretty fun. Being down there in the morning and afternoon with those kids, we kinda.
Chief,
that's
what's your
fun.
count, you think, going across that highway?
In the
89?
morning, there's about 15, in the afternoon, there's about 40.
Ooh.
So,
15 and 40.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and coming out of Harvest Park is gonna be awesome now because of that light, man, they were stuck in there. But if you remember our last council meeting, I said the new middle school was a mess, but people have adjusted and it's awesome now. I mean,
Good.
it's really a nice flow down there, so, we just still do have a couple kids that dart across the highway and we're trying to see.
And
when
they're
we
going to
see
do
'em.
that.
Well, we try to run them down and, I mean, that looks awful, sounds awful, but. and tell 'em-
It's for their good.
yeah, so, but it's going well down there, so I'm excited about the light, it looks good. I watched them stripe a little ways, or a little while today, it looks good, so that's up and going. And then we had a little issue in front of Mapleton Elementary, but Rocky Mountain Power came in, so there's new school zone lights there. There wasn't some power there for a couple days, they got that done. So I think we're rolling right now. We have had a couple calls this week of parents that say, hey, I want school zone lights here in different areas. And Steve and I will work on that and make sure it meets the criteria for school zones. So the schools are up and going and feel good about those right now. And then I've sat here for the last 40 minutes deciding if I wanted to tell you guys this or not, but I'm going to. It's not like me to do this, but I'm going to. So about 3 weeks ago, Officer Hatch was sitting at Maverick at about 2 in the morning. And there was a couple there that had been sitting there for a while. And she found out they were out of gas. So she dug into her wallet and bought them some gas and sent them on their way. Then about a week ago, this same couple was at Maverick again. This time it was at 3:30 in the morning. And they had a trailer hooked onto their truck. And when they pulled away, the trailer was barely hanging on, no lights. Anyway, she pulled them over. Turns out they just stole the trailer. And there was just an unbelievable amount of drugs in the car. So of course she made an arrest, and the little children in the car were severely neglected, diapers hadn't been changed in days. So anyway, the only reason I tell you that story is, we don't see that every day in Mapleton, but it does come through Mapleton. But that's the kind of officers I want here. And I want to say publicly, I hope she's watching how proud we are that she's doing that. So it was not easy to send those kids off with somebody else and take the parents away, but it's exactly what unfortunately had to happen. So I debated sharing that story with you, but I did. So there
Yeah.
you go.
There you go,
Well,
thanks.
That's a good story, and from the perspective of knowing that, we have to keep those things in mind, and we have great officers that take care of that kind of stuff.
And this seems so trivial, but I am so proud at 3:30 in the morning, they're not shutting down. They're still roaming the streets, so it's exactly what we want out of them. So
That's great.
I don't like to brag a lot, but I'm gonna brag on her right now, so.
I think it's great. Thanks for sharing that.
They move that stuff around over there.
It's all day, every day, but she got them that night, and it was a great, as you dissect the arrest, the search and seizure part, everything just by the book, so.
All
you-
alone?
Well, she had some help come up from Springville and Spanish Fork.
I was gonna say, that's pretty risky.
Well, yeah, definitely, and that's why I love having a good relationship with those two agencies, because, I don't want the criminals to know this, but in the middle of the night, we don't have as many guys out, right? So, she had that help quick, and she goes and helps them too, so it's a two-way street there, but she did a good job, it was awesome, so anyway, I want to tell you
Great.
guys that.
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you. Anything else?
No, nothing else.
Great, thanks.
I've got your number. It's about $23 a foot.
23, okay, so
And
that's
so-
up from last time I heard.
Sidewalk's about 25.
Sidewalk included,
No,
or
that's just curb and gutter.
So you're $53 a linear foot
You
for
do
curb
sidewalk
and
and
sidewalk.
curb and gutter, and as long as you don't have to do any asphalt work.
Right.
But most of the sidewalk and stuff that we're gonna add is gonna include widening roads, adding asphalt. So we're probably $70, $80 a foot for the whole thing.
That's a good number for me to help talk to the public about, stuff like that. They're like, how come we don't have it $78 a foot?
Okay, thanks. Anything else, Steve?
I don't have anything other than the solid waste treatment plants going ahead as we planned on so far.
Do they have a new target finish date?
Not really, not really. They think it's still gonna be about the same, but it just kind of depends on some of the things are starting to look better for supplies, but it's still too far away to know.
I noticed they increased the prices down at the old one.
How we did. Not necessarily for the locals, but for the other people coming in.
Well, I'm in other people. I'm not a local. I don't get a local.
You're from Mapleton, though.
I know, but they,
Ours went up from 8 to 10,
yeah.
local resident.
Oh, yes, that did. I misunderstood what you meant. I know that it's big, it was quite a jump for those out of district units.
Oh, yeah. Councilman Egbert.
I don't have any urgencies to report today.
Okay.
About 13 seconds, you told me
You
there.
watch.
Yeah.
You time.
Okay.
So I've met with Stephen, Mr. Lord, and we started a preliminary kickoff for a vehicle fleet management system, and it's going well. And I've got good things to report to Stephen later. Done. 12 seconds.
Good. Well, since we blew our record possibility anyway, I just have one quick question. I've had a couple of inquiries relative to the railroad crossing where we had our accident, and I had literally had no idea. I knew that it was, you know, whenever you deal with a railroad, you got a major red tape administrative headache. And so, can you give me any insight on
Yeah,
what's
Corey and I
going
actually
on with
talked
that?
about this last week. Correct me, in fact, Corey, why don't you just tell them?
Yeah, the conversations with Spanish Fork, so obviously, we take care of the east side of the railroad, Spanish Fork's on that west side. That west side is starting to see some development through the Spanish Fork, and so you'll start to see projects going on. Conversations with the railroad, that is going to be removed, that will no longer be an access point. So I'll keep you posted on that, but yeah, if it's gonna stay, to your point, we want some changes, but they're saying it's not.
So you're saying the
Development over there, which there is a lot of development coming, they will just nix that crossing
That's
altogether.
correct.
the railroad is saying that? That
Railroad's saying that as
They're
well,
gonna take off
yeah.
the crossing completely?
Correct,
Ah, interesting.
correct. That's the game plan right now.
It's the best
So,
thing to do, I think, in that location.
Yeah, I use that road every night, and it's not safe.
No.
If you're not familiar with it, it's at an angle and a slope and too close to Highway 89 where you really don't get a chance to think of what's going on there. But we'll keep following up. We don't want this to be 5 years down the road. I need something to be done here in this next year or so.
Okay. Anyway, all right, well, I can give him an answer. I don't have anything.
I don't have anything.
Moonlight House, are you guys still interested in helping with an AIDS petition? Yes?
Yep, I'm good.
That's 2 Fridays from now, yeah?
Thanks.
And that'll be, what are we, usually about 10 o'clock?
10.
I have
Well-
school that weekend, sorry.
Farron
Well-
and I would like tutus this year. Reed was there too. Reed would also like a tutu.
We'll send an email out.
Tutu.
You can wear mine.
I'd like 3.
I have a lot of respect for you guys that are up all night long. I'm like 9 o'clock.
It's not all night, but it's
It wasn't that late.
tiring.
It's
Last
not
time
all
I was
night?
at 1 o'clock in the
Oh,
morning
no.
when I got home.
Yeah, it's,
Oh, I thought it was all night long.
yeah, they have to
They have to be done.
The
cross
whole
at
idea
midnight.
is they want to be there by midnight, so you get a few stragglers and then you go home.
And the aid station is, like, it's not at the very end, it's more like in the middle, and so eventually
Oh,
everybody's
okay.
crossed. Yeah, so you don't have to, like, stay up there till midnight.
Okay.
Everybody's passed.
You're probably 10:30-ish, done.
Oh, okay, I could do that.
It's actually kind of fun.
We'll send an email out
People.
next week with a reminder on that, so.
But 7 o'clock.
And then I sent an email earlier today in regards to the purchase of that subject property we've discussed, and everything's looking good, and we're moving forward with finalizing stuff, but
Wonderful.
we should have everything wrapped up here pretty quick. If you have questions for me, give me a call.
So we don't need to go into closed session.
No closed session.
Wow, that's good. Okay, nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Hey, Stephen, nice haircut.